There gotta be a few sparks of sweet humanity left in this burned-out burg. We just have to figure out a way to mobilize it.
He's right. We need something that everyone in this town can get behind. We need... a symbol.
Something that appeals to the best in each and every one of us.
Something good. Something decent.
Something pure.
Well, I wouldn't compliment myself so highly, but welcome to a different perspective where civil commentary is priority. And one takeaway I have from that clip is the need to mobilize and need to think of something that's good. It brings the good out of all of us. And typically when you talk to people online, I guess with Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, whatever, when you make your comments and message, that's a good first step, and being that keyboard warrior is good tactics. I do not object to that. But another layer that should be explored more is now we have a superpower to talk to people all over the world, throughout our country. Just treat it more in a humane way. And that's why I like making videos. You see my face, you see my demeanor, you see me. Hey, I'm a real person. And I don't really see you as my audience. I see you guys as people that have the common interest to solve problems that affect all of us. And it's going to take a collaborative effort. So I see you as a partner. And we have to think together to get through this mess. And I understand there's people that are too far gone on the spectrum compared to where I am. And I'm not here to make a case for those individuals. I'm here to let's go ahead and talk about today's topic of discussion. I'm here to recruit you, man. If you're a centrist, if you're a moderate, if you're an independent, and if you're a person that's not a voter, because you just lost faith in the system, you went the George Carlin route, I get you, I understand. And I'm also going to address the obstacles us radical leftists have to address, because they're legitimate criticisms that most centrists and moderates and independents and non-voters probably wonder. And I don't know if many leftists articulate their reason to address those criticisms. And also, I would like to also offer some criticism on centrists and moderates and independents and non-voters as well. And of course, like always, I would like to end with my closing statements. And I'm trying to put some production quality as far as like organizing my stuff. And just sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and talk. And my last solicitation, I want you to consider being a radical leftist. Yes, that's right. I want you. So yeah, there's my high production right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put some background music because I just want this to be upbeat and get you engaged, and just go ahead and give you my interpretation of the descriptors that describe the left and the right and the center, the moderates. And also, it's good to know, like, what are we going to talk about? And then we'll get more descriptive with specific points. So let's go ahead and define what each side is before we continue with the specifics. So we got the left, we got the right. And I strategically did not put the name of any parties on here. You could just see the list that, the opposite applies to the other side of the spectrum. Higher corporate taxes, lower corporate taxes for the right, more regulations, less regulations, anti-interventionist policies versus pro-military, because the right usually embraces an increase of the military budget. Human values, which is more inclusive with alternative lifestyles, and the Christian values, which they're getting more progressive, and depending on which religion you embrace, some are less accepting and some are more. Criminal justice reform, I forgot to put the word criminal, my bad. And law force, support was more on the right, but yet when you look at gun regulations, and biggest concerns of most police officers are people having guns, but yet the right is all about gun rights. And it's a little crazy here in Texas, but anyways, I digress. Social justice warrior takes are usually, characteristics of the left. And the culture war, oh my gosh. Culture war topics just drive me nuts. I used to fall for it when I was a right-winger. I used to listen to Bill O'Reilly, and he's got a book called The Culture Wars. And they like talking about Dr. Zeus, Speedy Gonzalez, cartoons, Mr. Potato Head, and now they're talking about M&Ms. Really? Come on. It's just a distraction. So in family diversity and traditional family values, I just think the left embraces a more inclusive alternative lifestyle when it comes to family, and it includes traditional family values too, because I'm a leftist and I align more with traditional family values in my house, and that's where it stops. You know what? Whatever any American chooses to do in their house, is cool with me. That's freedom by definition. So where do centrists lie? You know what? I used to be a centrist. It was like a 16-year evolution for me to be on the right to the left, and part of that process was being in the center. And this was a good visual that described me and probably describes you. I mean, I considered some of the good perks of the left and the good perks of the right to try to define my political ideology. I was confused because, you know what, it just made me feel good about what I was to myself. But it really didn't help me be proactive to actually solve problems via policy. And I'll get more specific now, because now we're going to look at one of my tools to help us explore 2 specific policies that poll well with Americans. I mean, I think a lot of people on the right are realizing, like, yeah, and you can even see it on mainstream media, news outlets, that, you know, there's a lot of corporations that are not paying their fair share. They're paying 0 in federal taxes. And I think even people on the right are not cool with that. And Trump addresses that as the swamp, and you have Obama himself saying that's like crony capitalism. So it's something that's incriminated by our politicians, but what are they doing to prevent that from happening? Well, corporate taxation, that holds some kind of accountability and allows that wealth to trickle down, especially after record-breaking profits during a pandemic. You know what? It just looks like everyone should be struggling, and just some select elite multi-billion corporations are doing just fine. And this is not a criticism for small business owners at all. I support small business, and I shop local as much as I can. I don't even go to Walmart. I'm pretty hardcore at supporting local businesses or Winco that gives stock to their employees. So that's where I go. So I try to just match my rhetoric with my actions as well. So enough of me. We're talking about you, centrists, moderates, independents. Where do you guys usually align yourself on this spectrum? Yeah, you're right in the middle. You like that balanced approach. And you know what? That's how I felt when I was a centrist. You know, I just felt like if you went too far to the left, you're flirting with communism, you're giving too much authority to the government to run your life. Why would you want to do that? So if you went too far to the right, you're just going to allow that corrupt swamp to just fully engulf our country. Who wants to swim in a swampy country? Nobody. So it's always, you know, I felt safe being right in the middle. But it's not about being in the middle, it's about solving problems. So that one problem we're going to go ahead and discuss is corporate taxation, because it denies us the ability to fund public programs that help everybody in our country, like infrastructure, healthcare, other numerous things, which is for another video. So I think you guys get the gist. But let's go ahead and start putting these guys on this spectrum. I'm going to go ahead and put Obama right there. And I know a lot of centrists that are Democrats, they're going to be like, wait a minute, he was probably in the middle. He's right where he needs to be. But I'm going to go ahead and put him on the right. Let me go ahead and justify myself. He ran a populist campaign. A lot of people showed up to vote for Obama. He had a huge turnout with young people and disenfranchised voters, because he ran populist policies when he was talking and running. And that's usually going to line up with the left. But since he didn't deliver, because I just remember seeing a lot of people on that list, as far as corporations are involved, of not paying any taxes and federal taxes, is during the Obama administration. And so I'm going to go ahead and put him on the right if he didn't hold those corporations accountable. And I think most centrists would be like, yeah, that sounds fair. And, you know, I'll put him right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put Trump more to the right, because he brags about lowering corporate taxes. He criticizes Obama for his corporate taxation. And I'm going to go ahead and put Biden in the middle, because that's where he aligns. And I'm going to go ahead and put AOC right here. And I already know what some of you guys are thinking, especially you centrists, moderates, independents probably too, and the non-voters. You're like, and this girl's, she's a crazy left-winger. Why are you even putting her close to the middle? She is not aligned near me. She's going to be way over here, or probably further off the spectrum. I'm going to put it right there, and just bear with me for a second, all right? There's a reason. And let's go ahead and talk about these two individuals. I'm just going to go ahead and randomly put them there, or am I randomly putting them there? Now, let me go ahead and show you my little cheat sheet, and Pelosi will participate on my next issue, but this is for corporate taxation. So let's go and put my statistics up there that show the percentage of corporate taxation for each one of these individuals. President Trump was 21 with the lowest taxation for corporations. That was the swamp's big thank you card, I guess. Thank you, the swamp, we need to fix you, but you're going to get a low tax. I mean, good job, Trump. And Biden, you know what? He's like wanting to say, you know what? We need to fix this corruption. I'm not going to go Obama level, but I'm going to go right between Trump and Obama. Yeah. And we have Obama right here. You know what? I saw a lot of corporations on that list of paying zero taxes, and that started with him, at least from my political awakening, being woke. And AOC suggested that we, tax corporations at 70%, and a lot of people freaked out. But you know what? One thing Trump did that gave me the ability to just put things in perspective is to reference the past. So I looked toward the past, and I'm like, you know what? There was a golden age of prosperity. What were the factors that made that time so prosperous and so nostalgic to so many older Americans that are just like, I wish it was like the good old days. Well, what was it like in the good old days? That would be a great question the media should ask, because Eisenhower didn't suggest a high taxation like AOC. He implemented it up to 90%. And FDR, one of the quick Google searches I did just to find what his taxation was with corporations was 75%. By all means, fact check me, but I know he was high with corporations. He might have been higher because he was the president during the Great Depression. And he's a really interesting dude. He had 3 vice presidents, and he served for 4 terms. So we got to give that MAGA hat. I mean, I know Trump likes to claim it, but you know what, dude? That's just going to go to this Republican right here, man. That radical leftist MAGA hat goes to our homeboy Republican 5-star General Eisenhower. So you as a centrist, where are you gonna align yourself with? You consider Eisenhower a commie, or do you think reflecting on what we did in the past, we were very prosperous, would be not such a bad take? But wouldn't that be considered radical in these days? That's debatable. So I'll let you to answer your own question after I presented you with all those facts. And by all means, fact check me. And let's go ahead and put our individuals back up to their places, and let's go ahead and discuss one more area that we could, allocate our resources more strategically, because I think a lot of waste does go to the military. I mean, I value the military. I know we have interests that we need to protect and security. I do value that. And I think most centrists agree with me. And I think they're like, yeah, that's what we should prioritize. So, I sound like a centrist just by talking. But if you research how much of our tax dollars fund government programs, the military sucks up so much resources and revenue. And I don't think they should, but apparently some other politicians do. I mean, we gotta give credit to Obama. He killed Osama, and he invested a lot in drone technology. So he spent a lot of money on the military. And Trump was all giddy because he got his military budget increase for the military and bragged about how he brought money to the military. And Pelosi was like, I'm down. You know what? I like that too. So she could be put up in the right-wing spectrum as well. But she'll go past Trump, because not only did the Democrats approve Trump's request for the budget increase for the military, they gave him more than he asked for. And Biden, he has, after many Democrats criticized Trump for asking for more money for the military, the inflated requests, Biden during his administration did another military increase. And it's just really interesting because he took the troops back, so why would we need more money? We don't have troops in Afghanistan anymore, due to give Biden some credit, I guess, for that. Was it sloppy? Yeah, but it just doesn't make sense. Why would you want to increase the military budget after Trump's huge military budget increase? I don't know, maybe somebody can put some nuance and explain that to me, and I would greatly appreciate that. But, we're not going to go ahead and talk about AOC, nor we're going to talk about FDR, but we have my other favorite guy, this left-wing radical right here. I'm going to go ahead and put him right here because he was adamantly against military spending and just giving money to the military-industrial complex. He even gave us a dire warning about it. And I kind of align with Eisenhower on that. And does that make me a radical leftist? Yes, it does in these times. So, do you think staying complacent, my centrist brothers and sisters, is the best strategy to reallocate resources to domestic issues? That's something that you need to be honest about, because these presidents and politicians that are to the right of you didn't prioritize domestic issues as much as they should have, in my opinion. I mean, you can't really make an argument for Obama being successful on domestic issues when a lot of people didn't feel the same about him when he was touting his unemployment record numbers, because a lot of people don't realize we're in a gig economy, and just having a job doesn't mean you have dignity. So let's go ahead and stop using my little tool and just end the music now. Let's go ahead and I dipped into some of my criticism toward my centrist and moderate allies. I just don't think staying in the middle consistently, just due to those two topics right there. I have more examples, but I don't have all the time in the world, and I'm already going to get sleepy, so I got to hurry this up. But we'll just stop it right there with corporate taxation and military spending. Do you think it's a good idea to stay in the middle? Or do you think it's about time to be a little bit more proactive and bully politicians to do the right thing, to prioritize the needs of people because of the inflated cost of living? You probably need to give some people some more safety nets. I mean, are people going to be secure when they retire after they worked? And one of the things that I kind of push back on is the narrative that Americans are lazy, because that's what you hear from many politicians. That we don't want to make, like Joe Manchin, who happens to be a Democrat. He's like, well, yeah, we give all these free checks, you're just going to have people relying on it, and they're going to get lazy. I'm like, of all people to criticize a reliance on the government, a politician? I don't think he realizes the hypocrisy of that comment. And, there's some merit to it to a certain extent, because it creates government assistance, creates, a stagnated situation for a lot of people to depend on, like welfare, food stamps, because everyone says that's a government handout, which it is, but it's not enough to build you up. It's just enough to keep you complacent. If you make a little bit more money, you're not going to make enough money to put food on the table and pay rent. I mean, if you're in that poverty line, getting a job with that poverty line, it's just like, if you make enough money to get off of the government subsidies, you're not really making enough money to survive. So you want to consider yourself poor, because it's kind of a necessity, because the insignificant amount of money you make or the pay increase is not going to help you pay the bills. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's just, I feel like our way of helping poverty get out of poverty isn't meant to help elevate people. It's just meant to keep a certain demographic in a labor that is for retail, the fast food industry, to keep them, sustainable. I guess I don't know if I'm doing a good job articulating that, but let's go ahead and go on. If I get a chance to talk to someone, I probably can give you some examples, and you'll be like, oh, okay, now I know what you mean. So just bear with me. All right, so that's my criticism for people that are centrist, just not really understanding the nuance of like how sometimes social safety nets that are for poor people don't do enough to get them out of poverty. And that's what I'm trying to say. I guess I should have said it like that. And another criticism I have is like, they think that government ran programs are not efficient and all that. I actually have a Twitter take it. I'll go ahead and share it on my next slide, but right here I don't have it. So lack of organization, being a noob, making internet content, I guess I'm guilty as charged. But my buddy James, he was like saying, yeah, you know what, if we had that government healthcare like Bernie Sanders was pushing, that kind of worries him, because it's like the DMV. It's not going to be efficient. It's just going to be an inconvenience. And I have a different perspective of the DMV. I grew up in a rural area. I never had to wait very long to get my business done. I mean, there wasn't many people making a big line, so it was never an issue for me. And even in the city I live in right now, it's considerably bigger, but it's not a big inconvenience for me. And also, by talking to older Americans, how they're very nostalgic about the post office, about getting banking services at the post office, which you can't find anymore. And why don't we do that? Because we don't give that government entity the funding it needs to provide those services. So every time there's poor services provided by the government, it's due to the lack of funding. Because when we want to invest our money in bailing out corporations and tax cuts and manipulate the system so they can't fail, they do really good. So you get what you pay for. And we focus all the money to benefit, the elite and to maintain the power for certain individuals. We have all Pelosi and Dan Crenshaw doing really good on the stock market because they got that insider intel. So when we want to focus to help people, it can be done, but the focus hasn't really been much on the American people. And that's pretty my whole beef with people that just like to talk about the government doesn't work for people. It's not efficient. So a person that would disagree with you, James, with all due respect, and I mean, I disagree with you, but at the same time, I'm just a regular person, but who would disagree with you? That's kind of reputable, even to right wingers, because I heard a lot of right wingers say that was the last great Democrat. So who am I referring to that advocated for government-ran healthcare? Let's go ahead and check this out.
And what they do in England is entirely different. In England, the entire cost of medicine for people of all ages, all of it, doctors, the choice of doctors, hospitals, from the time you're born to the time you die, are included in a government program. But what we're talking about is entirely different. And I hope that while he's here, he and Dr. Spock and others who have joined us will come to see what we're trying to do. The fact of the matter is that what we are now talking about doing, most of the countries of Europe did years ago. The British did it 30 years ago. We are behind every country pretty nearly in Europe in this matter of medical care for our citizens. And then those who say that this should be left to private effort. In those hospitals,
I'll leave the full link so you can get the full context and the full speech of JFK advocating for government-ran healthcare. Is he considered a radical leftist? Maybe to some, but I personally know right-wingers that worship the ground he walks on. And I know a lot of older moderates, blue dog Democrats that, JFK. But yet, when you have someone echoing the talking points of someone that was decades ago, they're considered radical now. And that just really confuses me sometimes. And I want to go ahead and provide some more context with another individual from our past that, it takes away from domestic issues when we allocate our money to the military-industrial complex. So is it considered a radical left policy or mentality to just really fight the funding of the military? Well, let's go ahead and see the opinion of a Republican.
Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
Man, that's some radical leftist rhetoric right there. And you know what? That's one of the things I kind of push back on, that military worship culture. And it's so big in this country right now. I remember kind of when it started, it was like during George Walker Bush, because, he was bungling it up with the Middle East. So he just, put steroids and patriotism. That's when you had fighter jets flying over football stadiums during, football games. So it was just like patriotism on steroids during that time. And that's when it started, because I just remember when I was younger, like in the 80s and even in the 90s, early 90s. I mean, I just don't remember seeing a lot of patriotism on steroids. I mean, the military was just another path, and it was considered like a least desired path, because I was always told, in all my family, all the males in my family served in the military. So I always heard, if you go to the military, it's because you can't go to college. It's like, if you don't go to college, you're going to be just in the front line in the military. That's how you're going to be valued. You're going to go to bonehead school. I was like, what? And it kind of complemented the TV programs that I would see at the military. I watched Gomer Pyle. I watched F Troop. I watched, I can't think of some other goofy military shows, because it wasn't considered like one of the most prestigious things you could do, but it was still respected. If you went to the military, you were honored for your service, and you have to make sacrifices sometimes, and that was respected. But now you see how it's glamorized now in video games, and then you can go get wardrobed and make yourself look like you're a tactical special ops soldier. You play Rambo if you want to, and then even all the guns you could buy. It's just crazy. And I think nobody really took the advice of Eisenhower, and they just allowed that military industrial complex, invade our spirituality, invade our economy, take in all our resources. The thing he warned us about is happening, and it's been happening. So I just think, in order to address that, you do need radical left-wing strategies. Radical. So I don't think most centrists would probably disagree with that after watching that video. And so let's go ahead and just reiterate some of the things, what I just said, because one of the things I want you to know, going to the left in a radical sense, this is the way. And I'm just joking around. Of course, we have to have our debates and talk about it, but I have spoken. And so let's go ahead and discuss the obstacles. All the jokes aside, I just couldn't help myself. I gotta keep you guys engaged. This video goes a little bit long and I get bored too, but these are things that are important, and I gotta say my piece. So a lot of things that us leftists need to be aware of and address is the vocal minority in our community, and it's an obstacle. So let me go ahead and show you an obstacle that we have. I mean, people look at us leftists as being erratic and just being hyperbolic about simple things. They're just like, whoa, calm down, but you don't understand. You're a fascist, you're racist, you have to support the cause. I get that. That's pretty hyperbolic, and I don't have any defense for that. But typically you see that with younger kids, and we need to be sympathetic to the younger generations, guys. I mean, seriously, we have to recognize our economic privilege. I mean, the cost of living, at least when I was growing up, when I went to college, apartments, 2-bedroom apartment was $600. And my tuition, I fear looking at the price of going to college, even the university that I attended. I mean, I have daughters. I'm just like, whoa. I remember telling one of my friends that got me into politics by just telling me some people that he knew made a podcast. He's like, I can't believe they said this. It's his fault that I make these videos, by the way. But anyways, he was like, we had a conversation about like college debt. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Bernie Sanders would help eliminate that. He goes, well, that's no fair. I mean, I paid my debt. So, we naturally have that tendency of handouts being bad. But I used to think that way too. But I'm like, well, they paid more for their school and they're going to be in debt longer than we were. And we enjoyed a better economy. I think they deserve something because they're going to inherit a more inflated economy. And also, do you want that cost to keep on skyrocketing when your kids go to school? He's like, oh, yeah, go ahead and cancel the debt because it's going to apply to us too. If you have kids and, they're mediocre students and they don't get all the scholarships that, getting a straight A student gets, that cost is going to sneak up on you. Even if you do everything right, it's not as cheap as when you went to school. And helping them pay for apartments, I mean, that inflated cost right there. And I don't even want to talk about how expensive books are going to be, because that was always a racket right there, how people would just have to force you to buy books that they wrote, the professors, and then you go to the bookstore and you're like, holy moly, and then you'd sell them back for $1. So yeah, you could rob a bookstore and make more money than an actual bank. That's just my opinion. So let's go ahead and discuss some other obstacles other than just the stereotypical, outrage that a lot of centrists probably encounter online, but an obstacle that applies to everybody because the people in power want to divide us. And a person that articulated this issue superbly was Jon Stewart recently. And I can't find the link. I'm going to link JFK, the Eisenhower, and those two videos so you can get the full context of their speeches. But I couldn't find Jon Stewart's video, so I apologize. You will not find that link on my description. So here it is on my podcast. Let's check out Jon Stewart. Oh, and disclaimer, he drops the F-bomb, but he speaks truth to power. Let's go ahead and watch his...
That's the news story.
It makes you not want to say anything. Anything. And it's not like you want to talk about like it's the liberal woke mob. Like it's not. It's the business model of internet media companies and aggregators. And their model is arson. Their model is it doesn't matter. Let's remove the humanity from it. Let's remove any of the context from it. Let's just burn the whole fucking thing down because daddy needs his clicks.
Speaking of clicks, did this help our podcast clicks at all? Because there could be a silver lining. It could have...
I didn't want to... That's the news story.
So that is the news story. It's all about outrage. Don't let it draw you a part of that. That's a distraction. Normally when you talk to people that are talking politics, they're talking because they want to hear what you have to say and they want to challenge you. Let them know respectfully, I accept your challenge. And I respect you, and I will fight you fairly. And let's go ahead and agree on the rules of our combat. If you have that kind of approach, you're going to have people that respect you more. And I think that's more of a trend that I see with a lot of political streamers out there. I see some right-wing streamers out there that are actually engaging in good faith with liberals and people on the left. I wish I knew their names, and hopefully in my next video, because that's another thing, a goal of mine is just to go ahead and collaborate with other streamers that have a message, because me, I'm not going to be able to compete with CNN or any other media corporate powerhouse. But if we all work together and just promote each other, for example, there's this one guy that criticizes me in a constructive way because he's like, you don't need to sugarcoat your stuff. People need to know the truth. I think his name's Edward. And I'm like, I agree with you. It's not, it is important that people need to know the hard truths. But at the same time, rhetoric is valuable. And my philosophy is having a diversity in tactics. I will not cut ties with people like that. I will just be able to promote his way of delivering the truth. But I'm going to go ahead and blunt that edge of his sword that just cuts so deep because it's so sharp. And, once people hear me, they might want to hear Edward out. And they're like, I'm ready for that. Come on, get me right here. Give me your best shot, because he got those really tough criticisms that we probably all need to hear as Americans, because he lives in another part of the world in Europe. So it's interesting to hear what other people think of Americans that are not from the United States. So, you know what? We heard the criticism of some of the people that are centrists. They see what they see in their mind, and also they might think you're too far left on particular policies. And you know what? Hopefully I made a good case to address some of the criticism. I'm sure there's more out there, so send them my way. I'm an open book and I'm very transparent and I love to learn. So if I'm wrong, that's an awesome thing. I think that's one of my strengths. I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong. And you know what? I think that's it. This was a long podcast. Hopefully it wasn't boring. And I look forward to making more content. And I use what I find on Twitter when I have good faith conversations with people, and posting their stuff up on my my video content is a good way to subscribe to them too, because they want to carry that conversation. Even if they don't agree with me, we need to continue that dialogue, because the answers include all of us, and we all have to give that effort to pick the best route. So you know what? That's it for today. And y'all guys have a very good one.